What is your belief about belief? Is it important? Is it a starting point?
It is the only thing that matters. It is literally the only thing that matters. Because your experience, how you build something, what you learn, whatever it is, anything that you achieve, it is literally only based off of how much you believe it's going to happen. Goals and all this stuff, all it is breaking it down into micro actions for you to understand it and believe it, right? Because at the end of the day, it's only people that lose belief that quit. Move at such a pace that even hearing so much of that stuff, I just forget. I forget about the depth of a lot of the things that I've done throughout the time, because I almost only have memory in like 3-year chunks at a time from doing so much different stuff. And when I hear about the idea of flipping cars and breaking world records, jumping cars backwards and getting attacked by sharks and tigers, it just makes me feel so warm inside. It's like a highlight reel, like nobody's highlight reel that can never be taken away. You know, it's the joys of what something like Fantasy Factory allowed me to achieve, not only from a business and media standpoint, but really from these bizarre highlights of doing all this fun, exciting stuff. I just knew at that point that I would never be diving, most likely ever again. I would never be around 50 sharks ever again. And it was just this moment of clarity that was just like, wow, whatever happens for the rest of your life, look at this. You just allowed an 8-foot shark to bite you and attack your arm, and it worked. You know what I mean? It's like, before I got in the water, it was like, this is so dumb. Like, why would I even want to do this? I'm gonna lose function over this arm for this television show. And at the time, you know, they were saying they didn't like any of the cuts and weren't gonna air it, right? And so it was even that much more stressful of like, I'm going down to get attacked by a shark. I think that moment of clarity just allowed me to soak in a moment that I didn't want to forget ever again. For 2 years, I would get up and every day I would rate how motivated I was 0 to 10. And where it became so profoundly effective for me is what I realized is anytime I was under a 5, I would look at the world half empty, right? Mindsets, you pick apart every decision, you just hate you just literally, like, everything annoys you, regardless of what happens. And by just doing that exercise, it made me be able to identify the things that were sucking the energy out of me and driving me below, and I was able to slowly evolve those out of my life to where eventually I just don't ever wake up under a 5. I just don't. I believe progression is the key to happiness, right? It's that expansion of the universe and ultimate evolution, and when you equate it to skateboarding, you learn to ollie, you learn to kickflip, you learn to grind, you learn to kickflip to grind, right? Like, you learn to kickflip to backside Smith, you learn to kickflip to backside Smith, to kickflip out, right? Like, it's these levels, and you can only evolve and progress and become elite if you understand and learn the foundational steps along the way to put all of what you could consider experience together to do something really incredible. And I think a lot of people don't understand when it comes to entrepreneurialism, there's sort of these key elements that you have to understand from a foundational perspective in order to find success, which is ultimately creating a brand, understanding how to operationalize it, and understanding the financial implications of how you do both those things. It's scary, right? Because it's a great unknown, right? And I just don't, for whatever it's worth, driving a car 52 miles an hour backwards and jumping 90 feet is just scary. Time stands still because you're just like, all right, I got it, I have to do it. You have no choice but to go into kill mode. So many different times in the world of entrepreneurialism, especially this day and age, it's idea driven, right? As opposed to the battle's won or lost and how it's operationalized, and then ultimately the unit economics behind the idea, right? I think that's one of the biggest things that's overlooked in the space, especially this day and age of so many people having an idea that they think can be a successful business and wrapping some sort of service or need or disruption around that idea without clearly understanding how to evolve that into an operationalized business that makes money. It's a huge gap, you know. There are so many different things in life that suck the soul right out of you, and you have to learn to basically build a life with very few of those, and so few even when you get hit by one every now and then that it just simply doesn't stay, because there's so few things taking energy but giving you energy, because at the end it's energy, and for so many people it's different. I'm not even gonna say it, I'm just gonna to prove it, you know, and that was, you know, truly all the fire that I needed to, like, you know, get kick-started on you need to take control of what your opportunity is, and make sure that you focus on skateboarding, as it will allow you to maximize all of your other ambitions long term, you know. I think I stopped and self-evaluated 4 years ago, right? Where I just evaluated everything, right? Like what worked, what didn't, and then what do you have left to learn?
What is your belief about belief? Is it important? Is it a starting point?
It is the only thing that matters. It is literally the only thing that matters. Because your experience, how you build something, what you learn, whatever it is, anything that you achieve, it is literally only based off of how much you believe it's going to happen. Goals and all this stuff, all it is breaking it down into micro actions for you to understand it and believe it, right? And I think, you know, there's two levels of it, right? It's why I love, from a business side, having tactical revenue models that show you step by step, we can grow this many units by this many months and this many doors over this much time. That's believable to execute. That's why goal setting in a specific way means so much, right? But at a 30,000 foot level, you know, from a mentality standpoint, that unwavering self-belief is what I look for in people I partner with, because that's allows you to micro-fail and take big losses and take them as lessons, and just move and chase down and constantly be doing micro-pivoting to achieve your bigger vision or your big goal, right? Because at the end of the day, it's only people that lose belief that quit. And belief gives you so much energy. And again, why when you begin to tie all these things together, especially from goals and planning aspect, it's easy to weather storms when you understand, okay, I've got to move around to get to the next pillar of this goal, rather than thinking like, none of this is gonna work type of mentality. You just want good people. I live without failure, you know what I mean? Like, I live without regret, without pain, without any of the stuff like behind of all the stuff that I went through. It bleeds away so easily for me, you know? So I don't do it purposefully. And, you know, certain things may trigger more painful stuff as they're fresher, but eventually I don't remember any of it. But it also forces me now to stuff that I really want to retain, and especially turn to habit, which I think is probably the most difficult transition of experience, of how do you take something good or bad that you've experienced and then apply the lesson from it, and now in a consistent way. I think, again, for that aspect, you have to like recognize it, identify it, and then begin to use it with intent, you know what I mean, in order to have it sink in. Super driven people tend to believe they can be great. They would be great at everything if they just spent the time learning it or knowing it. It's the depth of clarity is the greatest form of peace and happiness, because you begin to now optimize your clear goal. As you begin to optimize it, it becomes so much more believable. I've always been driven, right? And I think at that particular time, I just wasn't getting enough out of being a pro skateboarder. You have to seek it. You have to seek like life mastery. Your first thing is like, what does your entire life look like, right? It's very difficult, and I think younger people struggle with trying to like look it forever and trying to design a life, and then now evaluating every single opportunity based off of how it fits into that core master plan. What's allowed me to do is basically systematize it in a way that I could now look deeper into a brand and how to simply put the pieces together to put a soul into that brand. I had to learn the depth of operationalizing a business because I didn't live on the operational side, and I don't like it, right? I just don't like it. It just opened up this insane level of deep clarity, because then you start thinking about time and energy and, okay, how do you systematize your life to stay balanced and what I like to call just living in the energy. Like, if you're not someone that's trying to evolve and grow and have sort of that idea of wanting to progress and become a better version of yourself and beginning to like self-analyze in a positive way, relentlessly consistent, right? It is like, this is who you are and how you are. Consistency is the only pathway to greatness, and ultimately it's the only pathway to trust. Excited about, but it's only fun if it goes like this, right? It's like the business that you stumble out the gate and then you're in no man's land, and then it's like, when do we let go of it? Like, even the emotional side, I had to learn to, if my passion is creating successful, sustainable businesses, you also have to detach yourself from being emotionally invested to everything that you do. Still felt generally at that age lost, right? And that led to a lot of partying, which then led to like just eating terribly and just being genuinely lazy. Your fire comes from the desire that you have to realize the passion. You're more compelled to execute it. You're not proving someone wrong or looking for some sort of material aspect of it. It's really more who you are as an individual. Right, and I think it's the self-awareness idea of like, you know what you're really great at, and you have the ability to find people like you and identifying to fill the gaps that you don't. I would hope that when it's all said and done, and one day I put all this thought into a system, that it would ultimately help create a pathway for people to learn to master themselves and build a life system that leads them to predictable happiness. You know, I think at the end of the day, creating some sort of program or outlet to be able to achieve that would be what I would like to do.